Coach Joe Davis, Western Illinois. Good late morning, Coach. How are you?
Hey, good luck, late morning to you. Appreciate you guys having us on.
All right. So we're at the point in time when you start to get a little itchy. You know it. You've been around this game a very long time. What are your feelings right here, right now, today, as we get ready to get started in earnest?
Well, I think I would probably echo what many of the coaches say. There's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of excitement. Certainly can smell football in the air. Our young men have been here the last 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, really training hard, weight room, on the field, 7-on-7s, team practices, family dinners. We're going to a big wrestling event Saturday night downtown Macomb. So, been a lot of team time, a lot of team bonding, a lot of team training. And certainly the football component of it is imminent, and we're fired up to get after it here in about a week and a half.
I'm guessing after a while, your body kind of gets used to it. And you know it's that way, at least from a fall standpoint. You feel a little pressured to kind of replicate last season, especially on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I don't know that pressure is the word. I mean, I just think that's the standard, and I've told guys here many times. I mean, in my time as a play caller, that's the standards to be the top offense, in the league, and I've been fortunate to be a part of a lot of those units. One of the things I'm most proud of probably about this team from last season that I certainly hope has some carryover is the progress and improvement that we made throughout the year. Early in the season last fall, we're still trying to figure out who is who and what is what and what pieces fit to the puzzle where. We're really, into week 12, we were playing our best football. And even though our record wasn't necessarily reflective of that down the stretch, we were competitive, ultra competitive, I would say, in the majority of the OVC Big South games. So, the expectation is to be number one in the conference. That's our mission. That's our goal, is to be champions. Certainly, from an offensive, defensive, and special team standpoint, you want to be the best, and that's certainly the process that we're pushing towards every single day.
With the offensive success you had last season, is there more of uh, do you flip to the defensive side and say we need to shore that up, but yet you had losses on the offense? And what is your mindset in replacing that, recalibrating, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I mentioned in the earlier media session, I do believe that on paper, this football team in 2025 is significantly more talented than we were last year. It's deeper, it's more competitive. Now, that being said, there were some guys last year that were among the best players in the OVC Big South that weren't the best players maybe until week 5 or 6. There we had an All-American receiver in Matt Henry who went in the transfer portal. He had 1,200 yards receiving. He didn't even start for us till week 4. So I think that with the amount of depth and talent that we've accumulated here and we've recruited to, especially with the early season big games, it might take us a while to figure out. Certainly, as coaches, you'd love to press play and everything's humming, on week 1. I just don't believe that that's college football nowadays. I think it takes some time. There'll be 57 new players on this football team. I think that's probably pretty consistent across the league.
It
And
is.
football is a process, man. It's a process driven game, and so it may take us a little bit. I would be remiss if I didn't say I want to see defensive improvement. We have to. We absolutely have to. One thing I mentioned to our staff and our football team, every single member of this organization is tasked with improvement. If you're a defensive end, you got to get better. If you're the linebacker coach, make that unit better. If you're the recruiting coordinator, make us better. And certainly, we'll have a lot of eyes here on our defense because we got to take some big steps. And then offensively, we've got to play complementary football. And I think that there were some games last year where the finger was incorrectly pointed at our defense. I think back to a Lindenwood game where we have 700 yards of offense. We turned it over on our last 3 possessions on offense. That's not a defensive issue. So that complementary aspect, I think, on all phases of our program, we'll really be working on and searching for here over the next 4 or 5 weeks.
To that point, and I'm going to expound on two things you mentioned, but to that point, I have to ask. Uh, you've had such success on the offensive side of the ball, quarterback professionally. You've had all of that. Uh, how hard is that to preach that message when the guys that are recipients of it know, "Ah, this guy is pretty good on the offensive side"? How do you articulate that?
Yeah, well, I think the first the way that it's articulated is I tell the players and certainly the quarterbacks, I've learned as much from the great quarterbacks I've coached that they've learned from me. I mean, our offense is a product of great players that we've had in the past that have maybe executed the system a little bit differently that it was installed, and it changed my perspective in terms of how that play should be run or how it should be blocked or how that route should be, executed. And so I think great organizations are collaborative. Everybody is in this thing together, and certainly the coach has got to kind of set the table a little bit. But great teams and great offenses and great defenses, eventually the players make it their own. When you win a championship, it's player driven. And I don't know that we were there yet last year. We were still a little bit of a coach driven operation, and we're trying to press play and kind of hit the gas and trying to work through personnel. Where I feel like this year we have an opportunity to be a lot more player driven, and in my time, that equates to a lot more success.
And then that second, expounding upon your comments earlier, Illinois Northwestern to open the season back to back. That's the wrong league. How did those games come about? And they're probably scheduled before you got there, I'm
Yeah,
going to
they are.
guess.
And that, and in honesty, I think somebody mentioned this to me this spring. I think in the history of FCS football, 2025, there will be the most two FBS game schedules that there's ever been, and I think it tells you a lot about the state that we're in. I mean, these games are fiscal aspects, of running successful programs. I think as teams looked ahead to the House settlement, the name, image, and likeness opportunities coming down the pike. I think a lot of teams said, "Hey, we're going to have to, schedule these two games and try to bring in about $1 million just to help supplement budgets and travel and NIL and those type of things." So I think it was correct forward thinking by our administration when they scheduled it. Uh, Certainly didn't know at the time that Illinois was arguably going to be a top 10 FBS team coming back. We're going to have our hands full, but ultimately great teams, great coaches, and we'll take this approach that you're not going to prepare any different. We're going to go into that game with the same mindset, the same preparation, the same schedule, the same amount of work that we would if we were playing SEMO or UT Martin. So certainly an exciting task for us, and there's some personal aspect to that to me. I still own a house in Champaign County from when I coached at Eastern. We own a house there. My wife is from Urbana-Champaign. She went to U of I. So we'll have a nice contingent of folks there for that first game.
Want to touch on a few players. Chris Irvin, is he your QB1 going into the season?
He will enter camp as the number one. Yes.
Okay. Markel Holman calls him, and he's from Philadelphia. So I got to find out how we got from Philadelphia. I think he was in the NAC for a while, then back to Macomb. On his Instagram post, he calls himself "lightning in a bottle." You agree with that, Coach?
I tell you what, offensively, he's one of the transfers I'm most excited about. I mean, Markel Holman, it's interesting. I recruited him out of high school. He actually was initially committed to West Point, had some academic stuff fall through, went to a junior college, ended up at St. Francis. St. Francis is a program many are aware just made the decision to go down to Division III. But their coaching staff, I've always been impressed with doing more with less. They've done a great job over the years of recruiting. They've had multiple transfers going to big time college football. And, certainly in the transfer portal for us, our philosophy is always length and production. You want kids with length, and then you want guys that have been production. Markel was a Phil Steele all conference running back for them last year, and their coaches couldn't have said better things about him, just in terms of his character, his work ethic, his athleticism, his top end speed. And I think he has a lot of position flexibility that we haven't even seen yet. He's been with us this summer, certainly working as a running back. That's where we're going to start him. But I think Markel's ceiling is very, very high. And my hope and prayer is that we've got him at the right time. His best football should be imminent, and very excited about him.
Yeah, as I look at it, as I listen to you, I feel like he's kind of the guy that, hey, we're going to find a way to get the ball to and make
Good
things
things
happen at
happen
that point.
when those guys
Uh,
touch the ball. There's no doubt.
Okay, what's your impressions as we wrap up here of this conference, this association of Big South, OVC Big South? Been through it. Kind of give us the 10,000-foot view.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as competitive as ever. Again, I mentioned I have a little bit of a unique perspective, having been a coordinator in the Missouri Valley, been a coordinator in the Patriot League, and the Coastal Athletic Conference, and kind of seeing coast to coast what FCS football looks like. And I think the transfer portal in itself has created a lot of parity in FCS football. I think you can see as schools offer certain players where those players land and sort of how it equates to the hierarchy of FCS football. But I think the Big South OVC having three teams in the playoffs last year was a huge positive for our league. And the thing I think that excites me most about this league is that there's really no 800-pound gorilla. And I say that with all due respect. You go to the Missouri Valley, and boy, oh boy, at some point you got to go to Fargo, and at some point you got to go to Brookings, South Dakota, to play South Dakota. I've been in those, in those meat grinders. This league, the universities are all very similar. The programs are all very similar. We all recruit from a similar footprint. And certainly there's some teams in this league, and I would give a ton of respect to SEMO and UT Martin that have had some consistency, especially Coach Simpson at UT Martin, sort of at the top of the league. But boy, oh boy, I mean, the line I think is very thin amongst teams, in terms of parity. And I think that's exciting. It should be exciting for fans and for certainly players and coaches and programs that follow the league, and very much anticipate 2025 being a highly competitive and exciting year in the OVC Big South.
Joe Davis going to begin his second season at Western Illinois. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.